my passion was a lot stronger than anything that came with getting bit. You know what I mean? Honestly, getting bit is like a part of the thrill a lot of times for me. Yeah. There's rarely a python hunt I don't get bit. You know what I mean? It's just kind of a part of it. And it's just, I'm not concerned about getting really bit. Now, some of these bigger animals, obviously, I'm being more careful. I don't want to have to pay for hospital or anything like that. A lot of times I'm sewing myself up, which I'm not a huge fan of. So, I'm definitely being careful. But my main concern when I'm handling these animals is focused on them, keeping them safe, and making sure they don't get away and escape from me. If I got to take a bite in the process, we can deal with that later. So this is Trapper Mike, and you're watching the Tom Rowland podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I've got an awesome one today. Somebody I follow on Instagram. His name is Trapper Mike. He also goes by the Python Cowboy. His name's Mike Kimmel, and he is a very interesting dude that is a state contracted python hunter in the Everglades. He does so much else besides that, and he has a tremendous amount of knowledge about native wildlife versus invasive species and why we need to get rid of some of the invasive species, the problems they're causing, all kinds of very, very interesting stuff that, I don't know, I learned a ton. And Mike is a cool guy that communicates really well, and he's got a lot that he can teach us all. So stand by for this conversation with Trapper Mike, the Python Cowboy, Mike Kimmel.
This episode is brought to you by Fishing Points. There are a lot of great features of the Fishing Points app. You can go to your app store and you can get it and you can check it out. One of the best things that I like about that app is that it has really high quality nautical charts. We fish off the grid often, and sometimes you don't have any reception, so a lot of your stuff on your phone doesn't work. But you can download these maps right to your phone so you can study them when you're off the grid, or you can actually use them and still get depth data while you are not connected to the internet. That's really cool. There's tons of things about fishing apps or Fishing Points that I think that you're really going to like. You can go right now to tomrowlandpodcast.com/points, and you can get 30% off a yearly subscription, and you can also start your free trial right away. So go check that out. I think you're really going to like it. Barracuda Tackle is a place where we get our cast nets. They make awesome cast nets. They have tons you can choose from there. Go to barracudatackle.com, and they have tons of other stuff besides cast nets as well. It's a great resource. Go to boathammockstands.com and get a stand that goes right in your rod holder. It allows you to hang a hammock from your boat, or in your boat, I should say. You'll have the most comfortable boat on the sandbar, or if you go on overnight trips, it's fantastic for that as well. And we have Empire Boat Covers. Empire Boat Covers is a very good place to get an affordable boat cover. You go to empirecovers.com/TRP, and you can keep all of those leaves from falling in your boat. It's fall. It's about to happen. You need to cover up all your stuff. A boat cover is a fantastic way to take care of your boats, but they have all kinds of covers. Boat covers for your car, for your RV, for your grill. They have covers for everything that you can imagine. And if you go to empirecovers.com/TRP, you can get 15% off your order and free shipping. So don't forget to use that code TRP to take advantage of that. And now we're getting back to the show.
Trapper Mike, what's going on, man? How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. I couldn't be doing better. I follow you on Instagram and have for a while. Man, you're a wild man. You're an interesting character, and you're doing some amazing things, man. I gotta find out more about what's going on with you.
Cool, man. Happy to share, for sure.
Yeah. So you are, well, why don't you tell me, from outward appearances, you're a state contracted hunter. of python and other invasive species. Is that fair to say, or tell me what you would classify yourself as?
It's definitely confusing. It's hard. There's kind of a lot to explain with it because it's all across the board. As far as what I'm state contracted for, I'm just contracted by the state for the pythons. They're actually currently working on a hog program, and they're considering me for that as well, which I'm excited about. But all the hog work I do, all the iguana work I do, even a lot of like the monitors, Egyptian geese, basically everything outside of pythons is almost always a private contract, where it's either from a private homeowner, or more often it's an entire property, an entire community, an entire ranch, an entire farm, something like that. Because for a lot of these invasive species, me targeting just one person's house, it don't make no sense. And I'm not trying to, sell these people a dream, basically.
Right.
So I like to get everybody on board. It's usually, gated communities and things like that for the whole community. And the iguanas have been keeping me very busy lately.
Yeah, well, I guess so. So let's rewind just a little bit. So you kind of happened upon this. Well, first of all, I want to tell people, I usually wait until the very end, but you have so much good social media, and tell everybody how they could follow you and where they could see your stuff, because I want people like right now to go and check out what you're doing and see like what we're talking about, because so much of this, like, you got to see it for yourself. I mean, you got these giant snakes and all this stuff that you're getting out of the Everglades. How would people follow you? Where do they follow you?
Python Cowboy is my Instagram, and my YouTube's also Python Cowboy. I would say that's your best bet for getting, kind of an idea of everything. And I appreciate that for sure, because dude, it's hard to explain everything I got going on. And, people kind of need to follow it for a little while to see, because it's not just me going out and removing these animals. I get them back to the ranch. I try to rescue them. I try to keep them alive. I try to use them as education. Or if I'm forced to euthanize, I'm making use of the skin. I'm making use of the meat, the bones, everything. And that's become a whole nother, kind of facet to it, is my side hustles and everything on the back end. And that's what really fuels the conservation.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about like how you got into this line of work.
It's always something I've been interested in. Even as a kid, I had like 20 reptiles, snakes, chameleons, geckos, anything you can imagine. And anything I didn't own, I was trying to run around and catch it and turn it into a pet. You know what I mean? I used to actually breed and sell these reptiles. A lot of the reptiles I'm hunting today, and sell them for allowance money and things like that. So for me, it's kind of come full circle,
Yeah. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Martin County, Stuart, Florida.
Okay.
Yeah, born and raised.
So this has gone full circle back to kind of the first kind of things that you were getting in pet stores or seeing in pet stores. Now those things are running wild in Florida.
Yes. From irresponsible pet owners and, them escaping, them being released, things like that. Hurricanes destroying pet stores, facilities where they're escaping, zoos, all kinds of stuff. You know what I mean?
So let's touch on that for just a second. So Florida is obviously, it's a wonderful state for growing things. Like, it's warm all the time. You've got this Everglades area. You've got tons of food for lots of stuff. And probably from wherever these things are from, I wouldn't imagine, part of the problem, I guess, is that they don't have the natural predators that they would have in their home turf,
Not
right?
only that, it's our wildlife here has no natural instincts to defend against these predators. So it's like in their native range, it's a little bit tougher for them to catch and kill animals than it is here. Here, it's just a buffet. These animals have no idea. These animals will walk right up to these big pythons and try to step over them. You know what I mean? And it's just, they have no natural defenses. And that's just what has totally, kind of allowed them to get a grip and keep the grip and take over. And that goes with a lot of the invasive species, like our Nile monitors and everything like that. they just take over because, a rabbit's not expecting this 6-foot lizard to charge in their den and just destroy them and their babies.
God.
So it's been a very serious thing for sure.
Yeah. And so I want to back up one thing. One thing I want to know is, at what point did the state of Florida get really serious about this and realize it's a problem? But let's touch on that in just a second. I want to know, like, when you're a kid, when did you kind of get over the fear of getting bit by all of these things? Because I had a garter snake when I was a kid, and that thing bit me, and I swear I was like, that's like the most harmless snake there is on the planet, right? But it scared the crap out of me, and I didn't want anything to do with snakes anymore. So somewhere along the line, you got over that real fast.
I don't even know if it's I got over it. I think it was always, my passion was a lot stronger than anything that came with getting bit. You know what I mean? Honestly, getting bit is like a part of the thrill a lot of times for me. Right. There's rarely a python hunt I don't get bit. You know what I mean? It's just kind of a part of it. And it's just, I'm not concerned about getting really bit. Now, some of these bigger animals, obviously, I'm being more careful. I don't want to have to pay for hospital or anything like that. A lot of times I'm sewing myself up, which I'm not a huge fan of. So, I'm definitely being careful. But my main concern when I'm handling these animals is focused on them, keeping them safe, and making sure they don't get away and escape from me. If I got to take a bite in the process, we can deal with that later, and that's kind of what it is. I'd say the passion of it just keeps it, on track.
Yeah, it's interesting to say that, because I'm not afraid of getting bit by a fish, like a barracuda or even a shark. Like, I could take a shark bite, but some people would just be like, I don't want to be 6 feet from that thing. Well, that's how I feel about the snakes. Like, I don't know. It's like it's a thing, in somebody's head.
Freak me out way more than any reptile, any land animal, alligator. I'll swim with an alligator before I'll swim with a shark any day.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I would go the other way, but it's a good thing that there's people that like sharks, and there's a good thing that people like alligators. So
there you go.
When you're going from a kid to, like, when's the first time that you got some money, like this was actually like a paying gig to go catch something?
I would say after my teens. I mean, as a kid, I was making money selling these animals, which is kind of, is what I use today a lot of times, is those, salesman skills, things like that, trying to figure out how to make $1 out of these animals after I catch them. But as far as actually paid for a removal, it wasn't until maybe, my later teens or even 20s where I'm really starting to build my business. And even when I started my business, people don't understand wildlife work. There ain't much money in it if you're doing it the way I'm going about it. There's a lot of people out here doing it dishonestly, and basically at the end of the day, they're just doing construction work on homes, keeping animals out. That's not what I want to do. In my line of work, there's not really much money in it unless you can really turn a profit. So, it's something where I take everything from when I was a kid, use that. And then I started doing a lot of these jobs for free when I started out, trying to build a name, trying to build my company, build this reputation, show people I'm trustworthy, trying to hustle these animals on the back end. Then I build my company, have my reputation, land a first real contract gig. And, that's when we start to charge money and make money. But even then it's always a struggle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's been the last decade really building the company.
Yeah. And so that first gig, what was the problem animal?
I think the first real paying gig was iguanas.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. About maybe like 10 years ago, something like that.
Now, a lot of people, that are not from Florida don't understand like why the iguana is such a problem. Tell people that, for the purpose of somebody that might be listening in Ohio or California or something, why is the iguana become such a problem in Florida?
Yeah, the iguana is specifically a huge problem, just as much as the python, but in a different aspect. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. They see the iguana and they just see a pet, and they're like, why are you killing these things? All they do is they eat flowers at the very worst, which that may not sound that bad, but they cause millions of dollars in landscape damage every single year. But that's not why I'm removing them. I couldn't care too much about that. What they're really doing is they're digging these burrows, undermining sidewalks, seawalls, housing foundations, anything, roadways, levees. Davy alone just spent $1.7 million last year repairing iguana damage to just their levees. And that's just Davy.
Wow.
So you can see across the board what they're causing. And it does not stop there. They are affecting native wildlife, which a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people don't think they do because they don't prey on native wildlife. That doesn't mean they don't affect it.
How do they affect it?
I've watched big bull iguanas chase down and attack native animals. I've sat there and watched them go inside other animals' burrows, destroy their nest, and lay their nest. A very common species they do that to is a gopher tortoise and a burrowing owl. Both are threatened species in the state of Florida. So they're pushing them closer to being endangered. And on top of that, they crap everywhere. Yeah. It's unreal, dude. It really is. It's nasty. And their feces can contain salmonella and all kinds of other illnesses. So as a small population, they're not that big of a deal. But as soon as they explode, and they will every time in these communities, they come calling and they're like, holy cow, we didn't think it was going to be a problem. We're up to our eyes in iguana poop. You know what I mean? What do we do? Our sidewalks are cracking, our seawalls are falling. And once it becomes that bad of a situation, it takes a lot to get it under control, and you'll never get it totally under control. Mm-hmm. You may have it managed, but it's going to be something you have to constantly manage. And that's why it's so important to nip it in the butt before it becomes a huge problem. Right. And that's another thing people don't understand. Just because an invasive species isn't a problem now doesn't mean 5 years down the road, they're not going to be the biggest problem the state of Florida has.
Right.
So, you know, that's really what we're looking at with the iguanas.
Well, I've already learned something about the iguanas, like some of their behavior and how damaging that is. Let's talk about some of the other problem animals that you're seeing, you're routinely going after, and what their effect is on native wildlife or structures. Like that was pretty interesting with the seawalls and stuff like that. Because I mean, those seawalls, not only are they very expensive, but you got to get a permit, and then you got to get a permit to fix them. I mean, that's a real problem.
Dude, it's a lot. It is a lot. And people don't understand that, you know what I mean? They look at just the face value and they don't see everything else that goes into it. And it's a lot for sure. You know, and like you said, it's not just the iguanas. There's a lot of other stuff we're dealing with. The Mexican spiny tail iguanas are the new up and coming species. I'm starting to see them everywhere from Martin County down to Homestead. And they do the same thing, except they're very aggressive. They will actually chase you down to try to bite you,
really,
which is very uncommon for an iguana.
Now, how big are these iguana, the ones that you're talking about right there?
They don't get quite as big as the green iguana, but they're a formidable opponent for sure. They get 4 or 5 feet, you know, tip to tip, and they have a mouthful of teeth to back it up.
Really?
So, yeah, actually a buddy of mine, a buddy of a buddy, they went, I guess, trying to capture them over in Central America or something like that. I think where they're native. They were over there and they wanted to capture one. He grabbed a big male. It turned around, bit his hand. He ended up with I don't know the amount of stitches, but I was very impressed by the number. And his whole hand was just filleted open. Like you took a bubble blade and just opened him up. You can see the whole inner workings of his hand. And
so how do those end up here? That seems like the worst pet you could possibly have. Like, who would want that? How does it get here?
From the pet trade, you know, they're beautiful. They're very beautiful. I think they're even more beautiful than the green iguana, and kept in captivity, you know, fed and handled. It's going to be a different animal than a feral wild Mexican spiny tail iguana. Same thing with a feral iguana versus a pet iguana. You know, it's a big difference. Yeah. A feral iguana is not going to let you pick them up. A feral iguana is going to run away from you, or he's going to scratch the living hell out of you and try to bite you. So, you know, it's a big difference. And the prime example of that is the black and white Argentina tegu. They have a big population down in Homestead, but they've been really controlled up until this point from private trappers, people that aren't even getting paid from anybody. They come down from Orlando, they come down from Georgia, they come down from all over the United States to come down here, set these traps, and trap these tegus for free. The reason they do this is so they can take these wild tegus and sell them as pets. The tegus are very unique because even if born in the wild, raised in the wild to an adult, they're super mean, super skittish. After a few months of working with them, feeding them, handling them, they're very intelligent and they actually can tame down to pets. The big problem with that now is the state of Florida just made iguanas and tegus illegal. So all of that goes away. All those private trappers are no longer coming down here, trapping them for free, controlling the population. I expect to see in the next few years the tegu population to spread out of Homestead into Boca, into Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach, all the surrounding areas. And it's going to become a big problem, especially for the Everglades, because the tegus, they prey almost exclusively on eggs and meat. So they're hunting down eggs, crocodile eggs, alligator eggs, bird eggs, and all of those species are very important to our ecosystem.
Yeah. So when they make it illegal like that, wouldn't that almost automatically spawn a black market for the things? I mean, so people couldn't be trapping as openly as they are, but don't you expect that some people are going to? I mean, that would almost make them more valuable, right?
Absolutely. Well, so what happens is you're going to have illegal activity, and with the illegal activity comes irresponsible owners.
Yeah.
So basically, you're cutting out all the responsible owners and just keeping the irresponsible owners. And now you're causing people that this may scare them to dump their reptile now because it's illegal.
Yeah.
So it's the worst thing they could have done, and it's something we've been fighting for years. They've been trying to get it underway for the past 5 years or more, probably. And it's everyone in the reptile community and kind of wildlife industry that knows has always been against it. They made the Burmese python illegal, and it just made the problem worse. Yeah. And I expect to see this iguana and tegu problem explode. So,
in your opinion, with the experience of the iguana of the python, what would be the answer? What is a better kind of policy?
Definitely not to discourage these free trappers coming down. These tegus can only survive in small area of South Florida, and they're shipping them all out of state. So they're not, changing anything with that. They're just taking away a solution. We need to be adding solutions, not taking them away. We need to have more state-funded programs like the Python program. We need to be encouraging hunters to go out on their own and try to make money from these animals, because there is value in the skin, in the meat, and everything like that. And with all these different rules, laws, regulations they have, and lack of access they give us, it makes it impossible. What it does is it stacks all the odds in the favor of the invasive species. Mm-hmm. The Burmese python wasn't that big of a problem, before the 90s. What did they do? They turned it into a national park, kicked all the gladesmen out of the Everglades, all the eyes and ears in the Everglades, and then the pythons just took over. That's what we have to stop from happening again with these other species.
So right now, that's what I've always kind of haven't really fully understood and would like to understand better. But the Everglades National Park, you hear people talk about the Everglades. They're not necessarily talking about the Everglades National Park. There's a big area that people would consider the Everglades, right? So like when somebody I don't know, I see other people, not just you, I follow other people that are like, well, I went on a python hunt tonight in the Everglades. So is it legal to harvest a python out of the Everglades for just a regular person, out of the Everglades National Park? Is that
National
legal?
Park, no.
Okay, so there's no harvest.
If a normal person is inside the national park and they see an 18-foot python killing a native deer, they can take a picture and keep going.
Wow.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, which I'm very against. I know why they do it. They do it because they're worried about people killing native species, thinking it's a python, things like that. But we need to punish the action and not make it harder to do the action. So we make it legal to remove the python, but you obviously keep it illegal to remove any other snake. So that's, we make that known, and it is known. So anybody going out there to hunt the python, they're going to take it upon themselves to make sure they're making the right decision. Otherwise, they're going to face consequences.
Right.
And that's what we really need to do. It's easy to tell the difference between a python and a native species. We now have so many different classes that people can take, and all the awareness on social media and the news. People know what a python is by this point. Mm-hmm. You're not going to mistake a 10-foot snake, for a native. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's something we got to work on more for sure. We don't want to just send a bunch of people into the national park gun ho by any means. And that's what they kind of make it seem like. There's only two options: either nothing at all or rednecks with shotguns. Right. And that's not so, you know what I mean, by any means.
Yeah. But someone like you, that's a state contracted hunter, can you go into the Everglades National Park and hunt there?
I can. Yeah. And this is actually just a new change. So there's two different programs, the South Florida Water Management Program and the FWC program, which they're now aligning both of them. So all the rules are slowly becoming the same. But this past 3 years, I haven't been able to go in the national park and remove them. And even now, inside the national park, I'm not allowed to keep the python, which for me, that's half my profit is off the skin, the meat, and everything like that. Now, I would like to clarify, we're talking about the national park. That's, a quarter, maybe half of the Everglades.
Right.
The Everglades stretches all the way up to technically Lake Kissimmee, but it's more or less Lake Okeechobee bottom and down. So we have all the different conservation areas, WMAs around the national park that the general public and all the python contractors can hunt. Now, the general public in a lot of these conservation areas, they're going to need keys to access the levees to drive, which only the python contractors like myself have. But they can still get out there and bicycle. They can still get out there and boat. And they can still drive the public levees in the trucks, which honestly, which a lot of people are going to want to know this, especially people wanting to get into python hunting. Right now, the public roads are producing more pythons than anywhere else. Tamiami Trail, west of the casino, all the way to Everglades City, pythons are crossing that highway, that levee all night. And people can just drive up and down with the lights on the side of the road. And I promise you're going to pick up a couple.
Wow. Yeah. Man, they're just thick. Right.
Yeah.
Now.
So, people always ask me if we think we're getting a handle on it. If, there's a light at the end of the tunnel or not. This past 3 years, I've seen a big increase in the native wildlife, which to me is like, it's working.
And so what's kind of the harbinger of that for you? Like the bellwether native wildlife that you're seeing more of, that you're kind of seeing, okay, this is happening, like rats or deer, or what is the one that you look for?
We're starting to see everything. The first 2 years, I literally saw nothing. Not one rabbit, not one raccoon, not one possum, not one otter, nothing, not one squirrel, nothing, dude. Wow. Unreal.
In a place that should be super abundant with wildlife,
I'm driving these levees that stretch 20 miles or more out into the middle of the Everglades, and they're just levees with trees that wildlife should be all over because it's a high spot in the swamp, and there's just nothing. Wow. Now in these areas we've been hitting, I've seen raccoons this past year. I'm starting to see rabbits, which is like the big telltale for me is the rabbits, squirrels, otters, everything, you know what I mean? And before, the only thing I was seeing was rats, because that's all that could keep up with the pythons is the rats breeding out there.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Sorry. I didn't want to.
So, this last year, I've seen this huge boost in wildlife, and I'm like, dude, we're crushing it. We're doing it. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. I don't think there's as many pythons as we think. But this hatching season, we've never caught so many pythons. It is unreal. So I'm almost backpedaling on what I've been saying, but I think what's going on is this. We've taken out a majority of the large pythons. So they're the ones eating the raccoons, eating the rabbits, eating the bigger stuff, the stuff that basically is larger than rats. they laid eggs, they bred, all those nests have been hatching. All those hatchings that are really hard to find are getting bigger and we're starting to see them more and catching them more, because all the sizes we're catching are like hatchling to a couple-year-old python, which is going to be like, 8 foot maybe.
And 8 feet in 2 years?
Oh yeah. And in the first year, they're 6 foot.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. And in the first year, everything I was catching was over 10 foot. So what I think has happened is we have hit them hard. We've taken out the majority of the big ones, which is, dude, helping the wildlife you wouldn't believe. The little ones are still eating the rats. They're starting to show their ugly faces more. So it seems like we got a ton of them. And as we keep working on these little ones, it'll all trickle down to where, hey, we're not catching as many now. It's looking a lot better across the board with sizes and everything like that. And honestly, even if we are constantly managing these little ones, which we're going to be, hey, that's not the worst thing in the world. They're eating rats and things like that. As long as they're not preying on our raccoons, preying on our larger species that are struggling so bad, we can work with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what about you said that for a while you weren't able to hunt in the national park, but there's been a rule change and now you can hunt in the national park. What about when you first started going in there? What were you seeing, like when there was a lack of any pressure on these snakes? What was it looking like when you first got back in there?
Well, for me, I've never wanted to hunt in the national park for the sole reason I know I can't keep my pythons.
Okay.
To me, I personally think they're probably wasting them. They probably do a little research on them and then toss them. Okay. I don't like stuff being wasted. It bothers me, especially when I know how valuable the skin is. So I don't really hunt in the national park that much, but I know other people that do. And there's always been volunteers in the park removing them, and park rangers and things like that. So there's always been a little pressure on them. And inside the national park, you really can't leave the main road. So it's not really like the best hunting in the world by any means.
Okay. I
prefer other areas because I like getting off the levee. I like exploring and doing stuff like that. And I have good luck like that.
Yeah. So a lot of people, the animal trade, they bring in snakes of all kinds, like cobras and boa constrictors. And I don't know. I mean, probably some of the most dangerous snakes. People want to have the weirdest things. Like, I don't understand it, but they want to keep some of this captive. Why is it that the python is the one that has really taken off and we don't have like an overabundance of cobras or an overabundance of boa constrictors? Or maybe we do. I don't know.
Well, that's a very good question. And we do have, breeding populations of other species. The red-tailed boa, there's a population down in Miami in a gated community that, I could go out there and probably catch one or two in a night. And then you have rainbow boas in Homestead, small populations, but nothing compares to the python, obviously. You know what I mean? The python is the problem. The reason being, in the 90s and before it was illegal, the Burmese python was the most popular snake to have.
Yeah.
They're easy to take care of. They're great eaters. They grow super fast. They can be tamed down very good, very easily. Not obviously captured from the wild, but, they're healthy and they're an easy pet to have, and they just get massive. So that's like, kind of cool and impressive. When they get that massive, people don't know what to do.
Right.
Pigs are expensive. Goats are expensive. How do you feed this thing unless you're willing to spend $200 a month? Most people aren't. They release them or they escape. They're master escapers. I've talked with some of these old school reptile guys like Strictly Reptiles and these guys that have been doing this for a living for decades. They are the guys in the reptile industry. They said it wasn't a thing for them to get a shipment of 1,000 Burmese pythons in and it'd be gone in a week, every single week. 1,000. So that shows how many were being pushed out. You know what I mean? And I think that's what's been the main contributor to it. And just the fact that how good of survivors they are. They're unbelievable because they come from the reptile trade. They have higher immunities. They have higher appetites. They have higher sex drives. They lay bigger clutches of eggs. And they're just more resistant to diseases and illnesses and parasites in general. So they're like a super snake out there. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And they just taken over.
So the python is obviously someplace where you're spending a lot of time, but man, looking at your Instagram and your videos and stuff like that, you're going after all kinds of other things. We talked about the iguana, but there's like armadillos. There's these monitor lizards that are coming in. Like the one post that I particularly thought was very interesting was the monitor lizard that you caught, and you were like, yeah, I get people tell me they've got one of these. It usually turns out to be a little baby alligator or something else, but this one was the real deal. And then that thing, basically, from your caption, it kicked your ass trying to get this thing. I mean, that looks like a nasty creature, man. The monitor lizard. What is the status of those things right now?
So there's a couple different species of monitor lizards. Now, the one that's currently illegal is the Nile Monitor. And wouldn't you know it, that's the one that we have the biggest problem with. The other one's the white throat monitor, the black throat monitor, Savannah monitor, the Asian water monitor. They're the exact same lizard. They just have a little different pattern, or their head might be shaped a little different. They're the same lizard, but we don't have breeding populations of them because they're not illegal. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
So, for example, when I was going to get this monitor, I got a call from a homeowner, and it was actually kind of funny because I've been on the hunt for what I thought was a Nile monitor in Martin County, kind of around that area. So when I got the call that, hey, we just seen a Nile monitor, or we just seen a monitor, I'm like, oh, we're on to something. Normally I'm a lot more skeptical. And the reason I kind of believe that we were on to something is they said it has the pattern of an alligator, but it is 100% not an alligator. They said they could see the head sticking out of the generator box. I know the area. There's not a lot of water nearby. It's not going to be an alligator. And I don't know of any green iguanas in that area, which sometimes they could mistake it for. So to me, it was hopeful. And not only that, it was still inside of an enclosed box or something that I don't think it's going to disappear by the time I get there. So it was in a stainless steel generator box on the side of their house. It took me about an hour to get there. There was like a whole crowd of people when I showed up, basically. They showed me where it's at. I set up some traps. There's 2 holes on each side of it. So I set up traps on either end in case it bolted out. You know what I mean? My experience is capturing Nile monitors. I've captured a few before. They're extremely fast. They're extremely wily, and it's unlike anything I've ever captured before. The first time I grabbed one, he started to try to twist off his own head in my hand, and they're pure muscle. He just spun me out of his hand, flipped out of my hand, took off running. I dove on him, grabbed him, got his tail and his head, and then he folds his body in half on himself, like he's got no bones. Folds in on himself, trying to bite the living crap out of me. And I just had to kind of wrestle with him for a good 10, 15 minutes. And I was just blown away by the way this thing moved and the power it had. So I'm keeping this in my mind as I'm getting ready to open this box. I brought my lead dog with me, Moose, who's actually helped me capture a Nile monitor before. So I got a little bit of backup in case this thing spins out of my hand and takes off. I'll be able to use him to track it down and help me capture it. So I position him behind me. I have all the homeowners around me watching, slowly open up this stainless steel box, look down inside, and I could tell right away it's not a Nile monitor, but it's a big white throat monitor, which for me was extra cool because I know I can keep it without having to worry about getting special licensing, which I can get. I've had it before. I just need to renew it. And what's going to be really cool for me is it's a lot more relaxed with me bringing this thing places because it's not controlled. So I can bring it to special events with kids, things like that, use it as education, kind of give it a new life and not have to put a bullet in his head. The last thing I want to do as a reptile lover is catch a big, cool monitor and just kill it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To me, that just sucks. So I'm super excited. I'm going to be able to keep it as a pet, but I got to get it out of this box first. And I don't know if it's friendly, if it's not friendly, how long it's been in the wild. I'm expecting it not to have been born in the wild just because I don't know of any breeding populations of white throats, especially in Martin County. So, I'm expecting to be kind of tame, but I don't know. I get my hand on it. I could instantly tell it's not tame. It was hissing, pissed off, trying to chomp my fingers. And dude, when this thing tries to bite me, it sounds like I'm dropping a damn Bible on the kitchen floor, like just whop, you know what I mean?
Wow.
So I'm like, I don't want to get tagged by this thing. And monitors, they're notorious for when they bite, they don't let go. So he's worked his way underneath the generator. He's like sprawling out using leverage. I can't get him out. Maybe after like 15, 20 minutes of even having the homeowner help me a little bit, which he wasn't too thrilled about. We got this sucker out. He's, lunging at me. I get him under control, and I'm stoked. The homeowner's stoked. Every moose is stoked. And, it went really good. It got him back to the ranch. I was already in the process of building an enclosure for some crazy reptile I caught, expecting I'm going to catch one, and finished it up, put him in there, and he eats a big old rat every other day. And he's a lot of fun.
Wow.
So it's cool.
That's awesome. So it's interesting how you use your dogs. How many dogs do you have?
With the 3 new puppies I got last week, we have 15.
15 dogs. So do you have any sort of hunting background with dogs, like coon hunting or anything like that? Where does all the dog come from?
Not really. More is just owning dogs and training dogs. More so than even using them as hunting. What's really got me to use them as hunting is my girlfriend and her dad, Allie and Go-Kart Ricky, Cougar Girl and Go-Kart Ricky. Dude,
you can't make this up. Like Go-Kart Ricky.
Yeah, they actually call him Go-Kart Ricky because he drives his big 2.5-ton swamp buggy like a damn go-kart all around the fucking swamp.
Gotcha.
So they've been doing it, I mean, their whole lives based. Allie, literally her whole life. She was 6 months old in a car seat on the old go-kart swamp buggy, crushing and catching hogs. So, it's something they've been doing forever. I love doing it with them. And the conservation work I do, I'm like, dude, we're using these dogs to catch the hogs, and it helps the ecosystem. I'm going to start using them on jobs. I'm going to start using them for everything. And since I have, it's been a game changer. We have this dog, Otto, who helps me big time on the iguanas, on the Egyptian geese, on tracking deer. Moose helps me with tracking deer. People are going to get confused when I say deer because it's like, well, deer's not an invasive species. But, I do more than even just invasive species. It's general Florida conservation. And because of how Florida has been so developed, I have to manage native species now for the health of the population of that species, for the health of the ecosystem, and for the health of our infrastructure and state.
So what would be an example of where you were going after deer that they were a problem? Like in a community or something?
Not so much in a community, but more or less for a farm or a population or an area where the population of deer is so plentiful that they're inbreeding, they're starting to get health issues, things like that. I'll come in there and I'll thin out the population, get it to a healthier state along with the help of a state biologist. That's basically permitting me for how many I can remove and stuff like that. More so than not, it's for a farm where the deer have exploded out of control, the population's unhealthy, and now in the surrounding areas, they're devastating the crops, like costing farmers hundreds of thousands of dollars every single year.
Yeah. So when you have an issue like that, do you have to take them out one at a time, or is there any way to trap them or do anything? Like, I know that some people can trap hogs, but
yeah, you can trap the hogs. Trapping the deer usually ain't too successful. And I don't do it that way. I don't trap the deer. You know what I mean? Time. I have a lot more luck hunting them. I go out. I have thermal scopes, suppressors on my rifles. I use subsonic ammo, so it sounds like a BB gun basically. And I can go out there and drop a herd of 3 or 4, one right after the other, basically.
Yeah.
And since we're not trying to wipe them out by any means. we're trying to thin it out and get it back to a healthier state. So it's usually like, you're not trying to remove the masses anyway.
Right.
You know, you're trying to slowly work your way there to see what looks right.
So when you get in a situation like that, and you said that sometimes you're working with a biologist, the biologist is going to come in there and he's going to say, we need to take out 50 or whatever the number is. And he's going to give you that number. And then that's what you can take out.
Generally, he'll give me maybe like 10 tags at a time.
Okay.
And I just keep replying for tags, and he kind of sees, you know, because everything I'm reporting, it's all before I even head out, I call them, let them know what weapons I have, what truck I'm in, who I'm with, how long we're going to be out. Afterwards, I let them know how many I got, male, female, weight, everything like that. And even recently, I've been cutting off the deer heads. You know, dude, we get some monster trophies that you're just like, damn, I want to put it on my wall. But you can't. You're not allowed to trophy hunt using the deer tags. You're actually, by law, you have to leave the cape and the head with the rack on site where you killed it. You're not allowed to take it. But I've been working with state biologists, and I've actually been giving them the heads, and they're testing them for chronic wasting disease and all these other illnesses. And that's kind of our protection, our forefront against these diseases working the way in is people like me, hunters like me out there removing these deer, managing the population, and having these animals tested. So we see a problem before it becomes a problem.
Yeah. And what's the status of the wasting disease that you're seeing? Or is there anything that other than the wasting disease that we should be concerned about with the deer?
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff they can get. All kind of neurological diseases, brain diseases, and even other stuff, respiratory, guts, everything like that. By no means am I an expert on all that stuff by any means. I just kind of go with what they want. And right now, the main thing they're testing for is the chronic wasting disease. I know that's always what they're real worried about, because we see in other states it just totally take over. We're very fortunate down here in Florida. We don't have too many issues with our deer, but that's because we work very hard at managing them properly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So another thing that you're spending some time on are the hogs. And they've been an invasive species for a long time. They cause all kinds of problems. Tell us a little bit about like the situation with the hogs and what kind of problems that they're causing for landowners or like a national park or whatever. Like, why is the hog bad?
So yeah, the hog definitely can be bad. I actually like the hog in small numbers, which hog in small numbers is just hog in big numbers waiting to happen. So, you know what I mean? I like to me, it's like almost like a deer. It's a nice game animal to have. It's a great resource Florida has. The meat is fabulous and it's easily harvested. You know what I mean? You can even catch them and keep them alive in a pen and fatten them up, which is what I do. But they can be an amazing problem because they get in these large numbers, and how they eat, they use their nose to shovel up the ground, which doesn't sound like a big deal. But if you were to see some of this destruction, it's unbelievable. It literally looks like a big tractor's come in and just tilled up the whole ground to the point where it's actually unusable in a lot of cases. You can't even get in there to fix it unless you're bringing a whole bunch of heavy equipment that's just going to cost unbelievable amounts of money, and even then it'll be a lot of work. And you can't mow it, you can't do anything after that. It just devastates the land. A lot of times I'm being brought in to remove them because they're ripping up farms, they're eating all the crops, or they're coming into these gated communities and golf courses, tearing up the golf course, tearing up the green, tearing up these people's lawns. And, it's what they do is devastating. They'll turn your lawn into just a big old ditch, and it's just, you can't have it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Especially with a lot of these HOAs and POAs, they're not allowed to have your yard looking like that. You know what I mean? So it's a big deal. And what they also do is, a lot of people don't understand, they're extremely aggressive and they are meat eaters. My hogs here on my ranch, they almost exclusively eat meat. Iguana meat, python meat, hog meat, everything. You know what I mean? They're cannibals. They love it. And I've seen them carrying away a fawn to go eat. You know what I mean? So they're preying on native wildlife. They're killing native wildlife. I've been out there calling for coyotes with an electronic predator call, mimicking the sound of a dying rabbit. Wouldn't you know it? Here comes a pack of 3 big old boar hogs looking to power them down and eat them. So, they have a lot of other consequences besides the agricultural and infrastructure damage and all that,
Yeah, man. So is most of your hunting that you're doing at night? Like you do a lot of night work, right?
Oh yeah, it's 24/7. It's all day, all night, morning, everything. Yeah.
But how do you kind of get your schedule for the week going? Do you have any idea what's going to happen this week, or is it kind of call by call, like whatever's the problem, I'm on it, man?
Yeah, a lot of times, I might know this week, or I might know 3 days ahead. But a lot of times it's like what's coming, which can be stressful, man. A lot of times I don't know if bills are getting paid next month. They've been getting paid, thank the Lord. But, there's nothing written in stone for me at all, man. So, it's a lot of stuff, emergency calls coming in, new jobs coming in. And a lot of it is pre-existing contracts that I can go to on my leisure whenever I want. So I keep them in my back pocket to fill in days that I don't have a call coming in for something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the Python contract with the state, almost all my iguana contracts, a lot of my hog contracts, they're all freestanding to when I can get in there and manage them.
Mm-hmm. All that takes a long time to build up, though. I mean, to have all these, deals where you can, go get some geese off of a golf course, I guess. What about those Egyptian geese? I was going to ask you that because the Egyptian geese, we see a lot of Canada geese sometimes on golf courses that people don't like either because they cause all kinds of problems.
Well, the Canadian geese are protected under the Migratory Bird Act.
Right.
So they migrate down here. The African Egyptian geese, they don't. They're strictly from the pet trade, so they're open season. But that doesn't mean go out there and just whack a bunch in a park because you'll get in trouble.
When you say open season, so anybody could kill those?
Yep. As long as it's gone about legally.
Okay.
Which that's the little asterisk.
Well, do you have to get a license, or what would be legally?
You don't need anything, but you're not going to be allowed just to go to a public park and start killing these things, or most of them are, or they're on private property. If they're on your private property, take them out. Probably any means necessary, because it's on your property. Now, if it's outside your property, you can kill them, you can take them out, but you want to make sure you're doing it humanely. You got to be doing it legally because you most likely won't be able to use a firearm. It may even be iffy you using an air rifle, which is what I use. And you're going to have a lot of people really pissed off at you, probably calling the cops, and the cops are probably going to want to have you stop so they don't have to answer any more calls. Mm-hmm. So, while it's legal, you're allowed to do it. It's most likely not going to be very easy for you to do it.
Right. Do you ever have any issues like that when you're doing your work, something that you're contracted for, and people are like, "What are you doing? Like, why are you killing that thing?"
I definitely have, but generally, I'm very careful. Over this past decade, I've learned kind of how to go about it really, really properly. I'm usually not shooting something in front of somebody else, just for sake of safety. And yeah, I don't want them to claim they have psychological damage from, people are crazy these days, dude, especially when it comes to animals, So, I'm very careful about that. Anytime I'm carrying my air rifle, I carry it non-threatening down by my side by its rifle butt. I usually have a bright yellow reflective vest with my logo on it. Or, if I see anybody, I quickly identify myself, wave, "Hey, I'm the Iguana guy. I've been contracted by the community." Most likely they've already heard about me. In a lot of these communities, they're all very intrigued. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, usually I'm good to go. Now, when I get these random where it's a single home in the middle of a community and none of the neighbors know what's going on, that's when I have more issues. But I'm not usually taking a bunch of jobs like that. Right. If they call me, I'm like, get the community on board, and I'm there.
Right.
So, it's kind of been a learning process to eliminate all that. But yeah, I used to get death threats. I used to get FWC coming to my house almost every single week because they've gotten a phone call from somebody saying that I'm doing this illegal, and I'm not. So yeah, it's been a lot of growing pains, I guess you can say.
Yeah. Now, what about like, I guess you'd call it a side hustle a little bit, like the YouTube thing and the Instagram and everything that you're building, becoming this, social media kind of star that has to be kind of generating some income, I would imagine. Does that just go kind of hand in hand? Like you do a great job at it, by the way. I mean, your videos are awesome. I watch them. I think they're fantastic, especially selfishly, especially when you get bit. Like that's pretty awesome.
People love it.
I know people love to watch somebody get bit, but they do. Like when you caught that giant, you just caught the state record snake, like, right? Did it hold the record?
So it's a state record for the Python program. I don't know if it's the official state record. I think there's one larger snake, but there's all kinds of skepticism behind that larger snake as far as its official length, where it was actually caught. There's suspicion it was actually caught in the national park illegally.
Oh.
So there's all stuff in the air about that. But yeah, the Python caught is the state program's.
So that thing was, how big was it?
17 foot 7 inches. And that's without us pulling on it. That's literally just how it laid on the ground, which every other snake I've ever seen measured, they're stretching, they're trying to get every inch out of it. So she was a true 17 foot 7.
So in all of the pet trade and everything that you've seen in your life, have you seen bigger ones than that? Or
my buddy has, it's not a Burmese, it's a reticulated, but I think it's like 22 foot, 300 pounds.
300. So just a couple of feet longer and it doubles in weight.
Well,
or more than doubles.
Right. It's fed good. Wow. And it is maybe 250, something like that. I say 300. I don't know if they've officially weighed it. It's unreal, dude. It is an absolute monster. Yeah.
That's crazy. And so somebody that grows a snake like that is,
and which, a quick plug, sorry. If people want to go see that snake, you can go see it. It's at like a little tourist attraction, but it's like real small and kind of like personal feeling, down in the Everglades. It's the skunk ape research headquarters.
Okay.
Jack Shealy owns it.
Do they ever see the skunk ape? Because I would love to see a skunk ape, even more so than a 300-pound snake. Now. Even more than a 300-pound snake, I'd rather see the skunk ape.
You got to go there and talk to them. They got some pictures and videos.
What about you? You ever seen one? Spend a lot of time out there, man.
I don't really believe the whole skunk ape thing too much. I think it's more mistaken identity. But
like right behind you, you've got a black bear standing on its hind legs, kind of walking around. Looks.
You ever seen one of them with mange?
No.
It looks like a damn skunk ape, I promise you.
Yeah. So I have seen them videos of bears of all kind walking on their hind legs, just walking with their arms to the side like this, just walking along. There's one where it's walking right next to a bus and they're going down the bus. I don't know if you've seen that video, but they're going down the bus windows and this thing's just walking next to it. And it looks like a person walking, like with a funny posture a little bit, but I mean, that could totally be
a skunk ape posture.
Yeah, I mean, it could totally be something like that. But I don't know. I mean, the skunk ape, it's interesting things like that, like the urban myths like that and the urban legends. It's interesting that those are worldwide, that almost every culture has something, whether it's the chupacabra or the skunk ape or Bigfoot or the Yeti or I don't know. I mean, Mothman, all of these things. And that's where it's kind of like, well, I don't want to just say no. Like if somebody from all of these cultures all around the world have these kind of mythical creatures that they can't quite put a finger on, are you too quick to just say that? I don't believe them. I mean, you spend a ton of time out there, and if you're like, I've never seen anything like that. Okay, I'm with you.
Well, I don't want to say I 100% don't believe. I don't really believe in it, but I don't believe it's bullcrap, I guess. I'm kind of up in the air about it. I am leaning more towards mistaken identity just because I deal with mistaken identity all the time. I have people texting me every single week that they have a damn anaconda in their backyard. Huh. And I promise you it ain't. It's a native brown water snake that's maybe 5 foot, So it's hard to say.
I mean, they're seeing something because the legend continues. So people continue to see something. They just don't know what it is.
Believe, they want to believe that bad where they'll make it so. But, who knows? I would expect someone like myself or even just a recreational hunter would have killed one by now.
Right.
Would have got, undisputable trail cam footage of one by now. We have all these cellular cameras. We have all this other stuff. And
That's the thing.
Now the new thing with how people refute that is, Bigfoot's an alien.
Well, see, I don't go into that at all. I don't go into that at all. Like I don't, that's where they totally lose me on the alien and that they can sense cameras and stuff like that. I don't think that. And then where I kind of got to where I was like, I don't know. I don't know if this is real. I mean, they're seeing something, but you got trail cameras all over the United States. And you're seeing things like, wow, like for example, people capture mountain lions on trail cameras all the time. And people are like, I had no idea there were mountain lions in this area. But here we've got pictures of them, lots of pictures, hundreds of pictures of these mountain lions in areas that people thought that they didn't exist and haven't seen one in 100 years. But they're there because of the cameras. So why can't you get a Bigfoot or a skunk ape or whatever? So I don't know. Maybe they are super smart. I don't know, but I don't think they're smart enough to not see a trail camera because the dude that robbed my neighbor's garage didn't see the trail camera either, and they're like, you get caught, you don't see it.
Yeah, hey, for sure.
Yeah. So tell me about the YouTube and stuff. How's that grown? I know I just had Ben Friedman on the show, and that's one of the way that he kind of helped me get hooked up with you. Cool. I know you've done a lot of work with him, and he told us and this audience about how he had seen your online presence grow. But has that been fun for you? What do you think about all that?
Yeah, it's been crazy for sure. I had no idea, I've been doing this forever and I just barely posted on Facebook before. And what really started it was I got in the Python program and I rescued an alligator from being killed by a python. So there's this alligator with a, 11, 12-foot python wrapped around it, strangling it. And this was actually the third time I've done this, the third alligator I've rescued. But the first two, I just didn't get on video. I wasn't on the video and everything. I had a gentleman with me and he videotaped the whole thing. He sent it into the news and it went viral. You know what I mean? And the news covered it and all this. And then I don't know if you're familiar with Flowgrown.
Yeah.
Florida company.
Yeah.
So shout out to Flowgrown. They're awesome, man. The owner of Flowgrown reached out to me and he's like, dude, you don't have an Instagram. What are you doing? He's like, I just made you an Instagram. I'm going to send you a whole bunch of shirts and stuff. Wear them, whatever. He didn't even care about that. And he's like, start posting. He's like, dude, it's going to be life-changing. I promise. So he shared me. He got me like a quick, maybe almost 1,000 followers just from some of the videos I posted. It was going really good. He's like, dude, the response is great. He goes, you're going to kill it. So I just kept going with it. And yeah, it's just exploded from there. I had no idea the opportunities, it would present to me, the doors it would open and things like that. And it's actually become super fun for me. I really enjoy showing people, spreading the awareness, interacting with people that are following me and everything like that. Dude, I love it. It's very cool for me.
Yeah. Well, you're good at it and you're bringing in some kind of education as well. So you're kind of like the Everglades Steve Irwin. You really are like, you're certainly not the Everglades Turtle Man, like Turtle Man was like, he was just so out there that I don't know. I mean, it was like people wanted to watch the train wreck, it was like, this is, but you're bringing like a different kind of deal to it. Like the education and you're speaking real clearly and everybody can understand what you're doing. And then you're actually producing and then you're doing crazy stuff like catching bees. And I mean, you got all these different, how do you know how to do all this stuff? How do you just catch whatever?
A lot of it, like for the bees, man, I can't even, take credit for that by any means. A buddy of mine, the bearded beekeeper, he, they see me doing these videos. Yeah.
Again, another character that you couldn't mess up, that you couldn't make up.
They see me doing these videos, and everything like that. And they know they have a bunch of knowledge to share. I have just a real basic knowledge on it, but I have a hunger for it all. And, I guess at the end of the day, I got the courage to be covered in bees and all that, to step outside my comfort zone and to do these different things with all these different people, to kind of, continue showing different areas of conservation and wildlife that, hey, I'm even learning something along with y'all. You know what I mean? When I went and did the bee thing with my buddy, which I have a YouTube video going to be coming out soon about it. I can't begin to tell y'all how much I learned. You know what I mean? I learned a ton that I didn't know about bees. And it was really cool for me. We got a video, which he says he's never seen this in the wild, and especially on video. We got a queen hatching in the nest and joining the nest as the new queen.
Wow.
Which is like a huge deal. So, we get cool stuff like that people have never seen. And, it's cool, man. It's fun for me to branch out and do these different things that, I'm not a beekeeper. I'm not no bee expert. Now, since that video, I'm about to actually bring some bees out on my ranch and start my whole little bee colony. So, you guys get to kind of see me learn as I grow, I guess.
Well, I think that's really cool. And I think that you got a super future in it, man. You could take this wherever you want to go with it. I mean, you got the contract on being able to hunt in all these different places. And then that yields itself to some crazy stories just by itself. And then you're capturing it on video. That's cool. Let's talk about trapping real quick, because trapping is harder than people think. Like, you don't just set a trap and the thing comes in. Like, you got to be super careful about the scent. And what's the hardest animal to trap?
It's all relative, to be honest with you. I've trapped, coyotes are hard for sure. But it just all depends on the trap you're able to use, I guess. There's methods that make any animal almost easy, and every animal's different. So it's kind of hard to say, this species harder than the other, because I may have a hog. Like right now, for example, I'm dealing with old Rocky the raccoon. He has a name because I've been chasing after this sucker for the last month and a half, and I haven't been able to trap him. I haven't been able to shoot him. I haven't been able to get my dogs on him. And he's just a freaking magician. So, if this may seem like the hardest animal to trap, but raccoons are generally pretty easy for me.
Yeah.
So it's really all relative. You know what I mean? Wildlife's wild. Every single one's different.
Well, what you said something there that I don't want to gloss over. You said there's methods that makes almost any animal easy. So what did you mean by that?
Well, for example, coyotes are very hard to trap, but that's if you're using like a cage trap. If you're setting a snare and you dig a little hole and I put some scent down in that hole, I'm going to probably catch that coyote. Mm-hmm. But in a lot of areas, I'm not allowed to use a snare because I might catch, old Betty's dog over here, or I might catch, something else that I'm not supposed to catch.
Right.
So, it's usually overcoming the obstacles you have is the real challenge. You know what I mean? You have people that frequent this area all the time walking through here, putting scent all over your trap, scaring away your wildlife, possibly tampering with your trap. But this is the only area I can trap. So, it's every job's different. Every scenario's, more challenging than the next.
Yeah. Interesting. I know that, some of the trappers like out West, those guys, like when trapping beaver and trapping other things, like they would tell me that, you got to be super, super careful about how you lay this trap down and your scent trail and everything that you got to do, because you can do everything almost right and then you can mess it up with your scent trail. You catch nothing.
Yeah, especially with an animal that's seen a trap before. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they're very, very wary. That's why a lot of times I like putting a trail camera on my trap, because I have tons of videos of just animal coming up, sniffing around my trap, looking, walking around it, and then just walking away. Just because they knew something was up. They might sit there I've had them sit there for 45 minutes, an hour deciding, and then they just walk away.
Wow.
It's cool to see, you know what I mean? It really is the different behaviors, and some are just dumb as it gets. Just walk on in, bump into the trap, look at the thing, and just, they're done, Yeah. And then I've had some that get trapped and then find a way to break out,
Yeah.
I've had some that get trapped and their buddy comes along and lets them out.
Really?
Dude, it's on, especially
like
with
raccoons. That's what I would think that was what you were talking about, because a raccoon, man, a raccoon is like, I don't know, just camping around raccoons, they get your food. Like they're going to get your food. You hang it from like a bear pole or whatever, and you wake up in the middle of the night and there's one shimmying down the line and ripping
on
up.
top of each other.
Yeah, it's crazy. They are so smart. They're so smart.
I've had a few as pets. And that's what really made me realize, like, dude, these things are stupid smart, like crazy smart. You know what I mean? It's like a little 4 or 5 year old.
What about that little squirrel you got as a pet that's on your hat and stuff? You still have him
right now? Yeah,
he's hanging around. He hangs around with you all the time.
Yeah, he's in his cage right now, but yeah, he's cool. I just I took him out the other day. He was running up in the trees and all that. Comes back to me. And
so how did you get him? Is that an injured animal or one that you had to trap, or what? What's the story with the squirrel?
Rescue. A concerned citizen actually reached out to me. They were in a park and this little baby squirrel came up to them and climbed up them. He was all skinny and sickly looking, and I'm sure they were probably freaked out by this thing, this squirrel running up them. And they could see that there was something up with it, you know what I mean? So they called me. I think what happened is someone in the area found a squirrel that fell out of a nest. They raised it up and they knew they couldn't take care of a squirrel. So when they thought it was big enough to be on its own, they let it loose. It wasn't quite ready. So I got it from them. I've raised it up, and he's just like still crazy friendly, where it makes me a little nervous to let him go. On my ranch, I have a lot of squirrels and they do fine, but I'm bordering a 10-acre sanctuary for hawks and owls.
Oh,
so if he's not real smart, he's going to get, turn into some owl poop.
Yeah, for sure. Owls are.
So I don't know. I'm kind of still deciding what I want to do with them. I think what I'm going to do is build him a nice big enclosure outside where it's got little tree in it and stuff like that, where he feels like he's in the wild, but he's still protected.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Well, listen, we got to do this again, because you got so many stories, and we didn't even go through the catching the giant one. I mean, the snake that you caught, we just kind of touched on it for a second, but it was 135 pounds and 17 feet long, and the thing bit you in the arm, and you look like you were about to bleed out. I mean,
and what was really cool about that snake is, most of these pythons, people are catching them on the side of the road or on the side of the levee. This thing was out in the middle of the Everglades. I had to take my little 14-foot John boat, out there hunting these islands. They're called spoil islands. And on one of the islands here I am, this monster stretched out, she just ate something. She looked like she ate a big old raccoon. And it was like the most epic find ever. And what was really cool about it is it's during the day too.
Really?
So during the day, they're more fired up. They got more energy. They're usually a little more aggressive, and it's a much harder of a capture. And being that she was on an island in the vegetation makes that capture 10 times harder. For me, that's what it's all about, dude. I love challenging myself. I love the battle. I love afterwards being like, I got it done. It wasn't easy. So that was definitely one of those moments. It was not easy, not only the capture part of it, taking the bite, getting her off, trying my best not to lose consciousness from all the blood loss, because I was spraying like a fountain. And not only that, but then afterwards, dragging her all the way back to my freaking all 135 pounds of her. I weigh 135 pounds to give you an idea. All 135 pounds of her, 95 degrees in the shade, with I don't know how much. I say a gallon of blood. I don't know how much blood, you know what I mean? A good amount for sure. It definitely was not easy, you know what I mean? But that's what I love. And hey, we got a cool video out of it.
So are you hunting mostly by yourself, and you're doing something like that by yourself? Maybe you take a dog with you or something, but you're pretty much by yourself?
For the pythons, they don't allow me to bring dogs. If they started letting me use dogs, I'd be catching 5 times the pythons I am.
Really? So what would a dog do? How would a dog help you to that degree with a python?
How I envision it is I would be driving the levee in my truck. I would have a dog on each side of the levee, and all the pythons that I'm passing that are covered by vegetation, which there's a lot of them, or down in holes, they would stop and they would basically point like a bird dog and stay like, 6 to 10 feet away from
them. And they smell them. They're not seeing them. They're smelling them, right?
They're smelling them. Yeah.
Wow. And so training those dogs, God, I've got so many questions. We got to do this again. But training your dogs to hunt reptiles, is that, are you kind of, do other people do that? Is this kind of a newer thing, or how did you? Okay, so how did you kind of do it?
Well, the dog either has it or he doesn't.
Right. You'll have a pointing type dog or whatever, right? And then you have to train them on that particular scent, right?
Yeah. So the python is extra tricky, and I've been training 2 dogs to do it recently, to do it in a private aspect outside of my state contract, because I know I want to basically show, hey, this is what y'all are missing out on. And going back to they either got it or they don't. I had 2 pointing dogs donated to me, and they don't got it. Mm-hmm. They definitely don't. I got them a little too late in age, and they don't show the interest. They don't have the drive for it, and they don't really have the, I guess, reptile nose. I don't know. You know what I mean? And it's all about exposure. It's about putting them in these controlled scenarios, seeing how they do, rewarding, the behavior you want. And a lot of times it's hard to, kind of get them to do the behavior you want for sure. And that's when it goes back to, they got it or they don't. If I put a bag that's had a python in it next to him, and he's sniffing and he sniffs right past it and is a lot more interested in the squirrel, it's going to be a struggle for me. Yeah. And that's what I've been dealing with these dogs. Even for the birds, they don't have a whole bunch of interests. They don't have the hunting drive in them. Most likely I'm going to rehome them as pets, or maybe as like part-time bird dogs. And I have my eye on, I don't know if you're familiar with my dog Otto, who I use for the iguanas and the Egyptian geese.
What kind of dog is that?
He's technically a German wire-haired pointer. Okay. Both his parents are draw hearts. The only reason he's not considered a draw heart is because he doesn't have the tattoo on his ear, because he's not registered under the German system. Okay. We're looking at another dog from the same breeder that would be registered, which that's not going to make any difference. He'll have a tattoo. That's it. But Otto's amazing. I put him on monitors, iguanas, deer, anything. He does it all. So we're looking to get one of those puppies. We're most likely going to have to shell out some money for it, probably about $2,000. They're not cheap. And start training them from a puppy how I like to do it. I got these dogs I have now that aren't working out at like 10 months old. They sat in a kennel their whole life from the guy I got them from. They didn't even have names. So they didn't have proper brain development or even hunting skills development. So it was a big challenge to start out with. But, going back to what you said, as far as how do you do it, it's exposing them to it, and just a lot of work, a lot of bonding, and slowly showing them what you want and having it click in their brain.
Yeah.
With the hogs and things like that, it's a lot easier because I'm not really teaching them to stay away from it and point it and things like that. I just want you to use your instincts to go out there, find it and catch it, which is usually a little easier to train. They just got to have grit. They got to have balls,
Right. And maybe if you are able to, that's kind of what you alluded to, is if you are able to show on video how many more snakes you might be able to catch, then maybe they would allow you to use the dogs.
Exactly.
Right.
And, it'll help in the private aspect because their pythons aren't just out in the Everglades. I was dealing with a python in a Digby Park, maybe about a year ago or so. And, I caught a 13-foot North African rock python in the middle of a Miami neighborhood.
Whoa.
So, and there is a breeding population of them there. Every few years or so, one is spotted.
Wow. And so some people there are like, my dog's missing, or like something's going on. Like there's 6 dogs missing from this neighborhood. We got a problem.
What happened is 5 years prior to the one I caught, which is why they took the sighting of the one that I caught so seriously. 5 years prior, a family went in their backyard. Their Siberian Husky had a 12-foot python, North African python, wrapped around it. The dog was already dead. And the homeowner grabbed a big knife, started slashing and stabbing the snake that was wrapped around the dog. didn't even faze it. He saw that he was doing nothing to the snake. So he called authorities. Authorities quickly got there, shot the snake. Dog was, done for. And I think a week after that, the county came out to mow an easement on the side of that home, and they chopped up another North African rock python. So there's a big 10-acre wooded lot there that definitely has a population of them in it. When I got the report that, hey, we're seeing this huge constrictor, I got a picture and I was like, that looks a little funny. I did a little research and I'm like, it's a North African rock python. I'm like, there was one 5 years ago caught there. So I staked it out for 2 days. At night, I would be python hunting in the Everglades. And then in the morning, I would be in the neighborhood with my binoculars scanning for this python to come out and sun. I knew because it's a North African rock python, they really, really like heat. So I figured he was going to be out sunning closer to 11 and noon, where Burmese pythons, it would normally be too hot for. Sure enough, 11:30, I'm scanning. And it's funny because it played out exactly in my mind it played out exactly as I thought it would in my mind. I'm scanning with these binoculars. I see an object I didn't remember being there 20 minutes prior, just this big dark thing. And I'm like, I don't think it is, but let me hop out and look, because there's a lot of trash all in there. As I'm getting, maybe 30 feet from it, I can see the shimmer. And I'm like, oh, fuck, that's him. Run back to my truck to grab my phone. I'm like, I got to get a picture and video of this. Run back to my truck to grab my phone. Run back. I'm panted, dude. My heart's pounding because I know these things are notoriously aggressive, notoriously quick. I get within maybe 10 feet of it, recording a little video, and the video is on my Instagram and my highlights. And this thing just starts lunging at me, attacking me. Wow. And I've never had a python do that. You know what I mean? Normally they're trying to get away from you, or they lay there, you grab them, and then they start attacking you. This thing, as soon as it seen me coming at me, wrestling with it, spraying poop everywhere, all started to wrap around my head because I'm videotaping. So I got it off of me. It actually was struggling so hard, it prolapsed its anus out.
Wow.
So there's this huge grapefruit hanging out of the mouth, rubbing it all over my face. You know what I mean? It's gross. But that shows you how hard it's fighting. And there was actually a gentleman and some lady sitting on the hood of their car smoking a doobie. And dude, I come up off the ground with this fucking alien around me, you know, and he wrapped around me, spraying shit everywhere. And they look at me, dude, they both get in their car and just peel out, gone. They didn't ask me if I'm all right, nothing, dude. Just cleared the freaking scene. I thought it was funny. And so I'm wrestling with this thing. I eventually get it back over to my truck. By this time, the whole freaking community's coming out. Little kids, their grandmothers are grabbing them, pulling them away. And, it was definitely a sight to see. And I had to euthanize it, obviously. It's an illegal species. And what was a real wake up moment for me is I've always been big on these pythons are dangerous for the ecosystem, but people don't got to worry, they're not going to eat your kids, blah, blah, blah. That's all bullcrap hype. Dude, there was kids 50 feet away from me playing basketball. If their basketball rolled past that snake, right, they wouldn't have seen it. They would have walked up to get their basketball. Without a doubt, that snake would have attacked one of those kids and would have overpowered them, no question. Whether it would have eaten them or not, probably not. It probably would have been too big. But that snake 100% could have killed one of those kids. And to me, that was damn, maybe I shouldn't be playing it off and acting like it's all hype, because they can be dangerous, man. It really can. And that was a big moment where it's we got to be careful of these snakes in the communities 100%, not just for dogs.
Wow. A Siberian Husky is definitely the size of a child, and they don't get that big you're saying that a 2-year-old is 8 feet long. That's fast growing, and they don't grow. Nothing grows fast without eating a lot. A mahi-mahi in the ocean is the fastest growing fish. There's a reason why. It is constantly eating. It never stops eating, and it grows real fast. But I don't know. Well, you're doing cool stuff. You're doing cool stuff and protecting the environment. which I think is cool. I love the conservation angle to it and getting rid of the invasive species. I think a lot of people probably learned a ton about why some of these species need to go and why they're exploding in numbers like they are. So it was cool conversation, man. If people want to support you and, follow you, tell them again how they follow you. And if there is any way to support your efforts and what you're doing, like you said, you need this new puppy. Is there a way that people could help with that and donate money or whatever?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I have people trying to donate a lot. I've always felt funny about accepting cash like that. I'm a very proud person. I like feeling like I've earned everything I have. I don't want any handouts. But what I have started doing is offering merchandise and things like that. And I sell leather products and all that. You can find that on my website, pythoncowboy.com. My leather products, I get batches here and there and they sell out almost instantly. So you got to really keep an eye on my Instagram and my website for your chance to get those. There's a batch on there now to give you a little bit of an idea, but that's 1% of what I offer. And then, of course, my Instagram, Python Cowboy. And right now, what's real big for people supporting me is watching my YouTube. I get paid for ads and everything like that. So watch my videos and let's get some money in my pocket.
Right. Subscribe. And then you can see him train up this new puppy. If you get that new puppy, that'd be a whole cool series of videos just training it. Like, how do you do that? That'd be pretty cool. I love training dogs. I got a moose too. He's asleep right there. But my moose is a chocolate lab, and like yesterday was my birthday, and somebody popped a balloon, and Moose freaked out. Like, I don't know, Gus. I've got two dogs right in front of me. Gus is the hunting dog. Moose is his younger brother, but I don't know if Moose has got anything in him, man. He's a great pet, but
for bird hunting.
Yeah, he's a great pet, but man, he's scared of his shadow. He's scared of the leaf blower. He's scared of balloons popping. He's scared of the vacuum cleaner. He's scared of everything.
That makes it tough.
Yeah.
Sure. We've been lucky with Otto. Sounds don't bother him at all. But Allie, that's Allie's area of expertise, is like, she's really dived deep into training these bird dogs. I don't know anything about it really, a little bit, but not much. And she's the one that trained, Otto for the Egyptian geese. And seems like just real slow exposure and working your way up. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
Tough.
That's cool, man. Well, listen, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it, and good luck. I'm sure you're going out tonight to go catch something crazy, and I hope you don't get bit. Oh, the one thing I wanted to ask, you're doing most of this barehanded on your Instagram. Do you not wear gloves for a reason? Do they usually just go right through the gloves, or what? Why do you not wear gloves?
So my number one concern is not losing this animal and not hurting the animal. The best way for me to make sure of that is by not hindering my hands with any kind of bull crap. Gloves get in the way like you wouldn't believe in all kind of different scenarios, getting caught up on vine structures, hard to grab when they slip out of your hands is just not good. So, I prefer not to wear the gloves 100%. Now, sometimes if I'm bare handling a raccoon or something like that, where I know he's gonna bite me, I have no choice but to kind of reach in the cage. Dude, raccoons are vicious. I have specific raccoon gloves I wear. But, there have been times where I've barehanded raccoons and I've paid the price for it, and have had a few rabies shots as well. So.
All right, man. All right. Well, I hope you don't get bit tonight, but I'm probably pretty sure that you're going to. So I hope it won't go in too deep. And anyway, it was great to get to know you a little bit and hear some stories. I hope we'll do this again. And everybody go follow Trapper Mike. He's a really cool dude. He can learn a lot from his Instagram and his videos. I know I have. So anyway, Mike, thanks a lot. And we'll see you guys next week.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
You bet.